Ravens flock, good afternoon. It is 4:34 Eastern on Sunday, August 11th, and I just hopped down off the ladder to give you some what hopefully continues to be more good news and another bullet dodged when it comes to Ravens injury-related news. So that and more is what I have coming up in this episode, which is presented to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. And this time, it's about all-pro safety Kyle Hamilton, who, according to beat reporters on the scene and John Harbaugh just a short while ago, who met with the media locally, it looks like Kyle Hamilton escaped unscathed from something that could have been, as Jeff noted, a really, really scary moment late in Ravens practice earlier today. He went down with what appeared to be a left leg injury from Jeff's view. He was down for a bit before limping off, ultimately walked back to the locker room with a bit of a limp. Then John Harbaugh spoke with reporters just a short while ago and kind of reassured everybody on the play itself. Kyle ran up to contest a pass and fell to the ground. It didn't appear there was any contact. And I think that in today's day and age, particularly given what the Ravens have dealt with in recent summers with non-contact injuries, that's highly, highly concerning. At the same time, according to Harbs, initially at least, it looks like he's in stable condition, and that's to use Harbaugh's words specifically. He looks stable. Quote, obviously, we'll continue to do some tests tonight and tomorrow to make sure, but first indications are he's fine. Again, it is a left leg injury. This is their all-pro safety, somebody who has emerged as not only an incredibly important piece to the defensive puzzle in Baltimore, but one of the best in today's game in 2 short years. He is a chess piece for them. They use him all over the field, inside, outside, on the back end, you name it. He does it for you. And so needless to say, this does feel like, to go along with the headline, this does feel like it's a major, major bullet dodge, especially given the latest on Nate Wiggins. So again, if you're just tuning in, it was a scary moment late in Ravens training camp practice earlier today. Kyle Hamilton went down with what appeared to be a left leg injury. He was down for a bit before limping off on his own power with trainers. He walked back to the locker room with a bit of a limp. But the initial tests are that he escaped, as Nate Wiggins did, within the last 48 hours without a significant injury. 2 key pieces. One that's already an established piece in number 14, and one that's hoping to become an established piece in number 2, Nate Wiggins. More on him in just a bit. But that is the breaking news within this hour as we work our way through the rest of the team. As per John Harbaugh and the updates that he gave local reporters, he's expecting Rashad Bateman to return real soon. Quote, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's right there. We know that Bate was injured last week with that acrobatic catch somewhere in the midsection area, did not practice in the days that followed, and obviously we're not going to see him, I would think, in any of the preseason action, and quite frankly, we don't want to see him in the preseason. Get yourself right and give yourself a shot to start this year healthy. Elsewhere, Harbs and Gianna Hahn tweeted this out. Harbaugh, after watching the film, said that he'd be comfortable if Roger Rosengarten and Andrew Voorhees were out there week 1 as the starters, meaning Voorhees would be your starter at left guard, and perhaps Roger Rosengarten could potentially be in play here to be your starting right tackle. If that's the case, let's move McCary into your right guard slot if Daniel Fa'alele continues to struggle. Although Harbaugh had some positive things to say about him, said that he actually passed the first test. That was to use his specific wording. He said that Fa'alele passed the first test and was also complimentary of Ben Cleveland, who handled center duties for an injured Tyler Linderbaum in the first half of that preseason game against Philadelphia the other night. Elsewhere, Harb says he's hopeful that David Ojabo, who of course is 8 or 9 months removed from ACL surgery, has not been cleared to play in preseason football yet, but that he's hopeful he will at some point here. The decision is up to team doctors. And as Jonas noted on X here, David was running around full speed and full pads today and looked more explosive than he has in previous weeks. So perhaps he's being ramped up, and they're just going to be careful with him. A third-year player, a pivotal year for him, no question, given how limited he's been, whether it was because of the Achilles tear or last year's injury over his first couple of years in the league. The Ravens need him to emerge. They could really, really benefit from him emerging. This was somewhat surprising here, and I referenced it a second ago. Harbaugh actually gave Daniel Fa'alele some flowers, said that he passed the first test. I'm no offensive line guru, and I don't think you need to be concerned about what we're seeing from Daniel Fa'alele at right guard. He had a false start on Friday night. He's generally stiff and slow laterally. He's a big boy, 6'8", well over 300 pounds. This experiment at right guard doesn't give me a ton of confidence. And I think that's an area of vulnerability, quite frankly, when you look at the offensive line and the projected starting offensive line. If that includes Daniel at right guard, you got to see more over the next couple weeks, especially when the live bullets are flying in preseason play. You got to see more than what we've seen, especially because of the struggles that he's had throughout camp, whether it's dealing with the heat or Baltimore's defensive line. And I know there's some big dudes in there, and they can be one of the league's most stout when healthy and when all first stringers are in there. But I got to see more. And I know Philly had some dogs in there as well, but they weren't running all first team defensive linemen out there either on Friday night. So I got to see more there in order to truly feel confident about Daniel being the answer at right guard moving forward for a full regular season slate of games. Before we continue the conversation, this episode is brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. And at Preston, Bobby Baltimore subscribers receive 2 exclusive offers. They'll give you $500 towards a new or pre-owned vehicle if you tell them that I sent you. Or when you buy 4 tires, you'll receive 50% off your alignment. You've got over 2,000 vehicles to shop from. One of those 2,000, I currently have in the driveway. It's a 2023 Ford Bronco Sport with the Bobby Baltimore decal on the back, as some of you have seen. And I couldn't be happier to be driving around in that thing, putting some good miles on it. Incredibly spacious. Tilly's got all the room in the world. Leather seats are slick. Heaters, not this time of year, but heated seats. So you'll be joining the Preston team along with Kyle Hamilton, Mark Andrews, myself, and many more throughout Baltimore and beyond. Cars cost less with Preston. You can get started today by visiting PrestonMotor.com, or you can just simply scan the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that you see right now. All this information can be found in the show notes below. And if you find something you like at Preston, let them know I sent you so you can be eligible for a few of those perks as a Bobby Baltimore subscriber. Earlier today, this is the live stream 2.0. It's been a busy day. I'm back in upstate New York, trying to finish the job that I started last month, painting my mother's house. And I've hopped down off the ladder twice today. One for the Nate Wiggins conversation from earlier. And now, if you're just tuning in, Kyle Hamilton looks to have avoided a serious injury as well. But more specifics on Nate. And this comes from Ian Rappaport. So you knew at some point it was going to get to the national side of things. Earlier today, Jordan Schultz, NFL reporter, said that the MRI, according to his source, that Nate's MRI came back clean and that he still may be sidelined for a good chunk of camp, but that it wasn't as serious as initially feared and that he should be ready to go week 1. Ian Rappaport, on top of that, says that it's a minor shoulder sprain that he suffered and he shouldn't miss regular season time, which reiterates what Jordan had to say. And Ian even says that he is considered day-to-day in terms of the specific timeline. I hope for his sake that we don't see him in preseason anymore. I know Kadri was chiming in on that conversation earlier today related to the reps and the situational awareness type reps that you need as a rookie and how important preseason play can be. But man, we've seen what this guy brings to the table now through a half and change of football. And yes, while wasn't a first string offense that he was going against, Nate just looks like he belongs. I think the Ravens should have confidence in him that if you have to go trial by error and drink from the fire hose right out of the gate in regular season play, if because that'll mean over the next few weeks you get yourself fully healthy and not go in, with one hand tied around your back or just not feeling 100% into your first full rookie season, that to me feels like it's a better move than almost over preparing, if you will, with meaningless preseason football. I get it. The reps and the situational awareness and all of the live bullet experience that you get from full speed play, albeit preseason, that's far from meaningless. But we want to make sure this guy's fully healthy because this cornerback room has some challenges here in the early going. We'll get to a practice report in just a second, but as of right now, Nate Wiggins is considered day-to-day. This was from earlier today. Jordan Schultz, as I mentioned, speaking to the MRI, it is not as serious as initially feared, and he should be ready to go by week 1. That is that. But as I referenced a second ago, the cornerback room, as of right now, August 11th, it's got some questions. First of all, I just wanted to show you this photo of Nate. Look at this guy. Look at the coverage. Sticky and then some. Daniel probably with a sentiment that I think we can all get behind. While we can't wrap these guys up in bubble wrap, it's awfully tempting. It is awfully tempting. Ravens 76 says that he's turning off all Ravens training camp notifications until the season starts. Training camp is the scariest time of the season. No doubt. And Sean's putting some mojo out in the air that I won't acknowledge, but you see it on the screen right now. Sean, don't do it. Don't do it, Sean. That was a brutal summer and a brutal year. 2021 was worse, though, from an injury standpoint. Can't even put that mojo out there. What I saw from Nate shows me that he is ready, he is fearless, and he's prepared to make a seamless transition. And when I say seamless, of course, there will be bumps and bruises along the way. But this guy's NFL ready, and he showed us that on Friday night. Now, speaking to the cornerback room, like I mentioned, it's got some questions. The good news is Trayvon Mullen returned to practice today. We'll get a full practice update in just a second. But with no Arthur Maulet for at least the immediate future, TJ Tampa going to be preparing from behind as soon as he gets taken off the physically unable to perform list, having underwent double sports hernia surgery last month. And now Nate is listed day to day. It can change in an instance. Like just 72 hours ago, you're looking at it as the deepest room by far that has padding all around it. And then things change. Arthroscopic knee surgery for Maulet. May not see him until October. TJ Tampa playing from behind. You walk away somehow unscathed after a major scare with Nate Wiggins. Good thing they got a lot of candidates, two of which who are on the screen right now, Jalen Armour-Davis and Pepe Williams. If they can stay healthy, I like their chances to make this 53-man roster, given some of the questions right out of the gate. Practice report time. Kyle Barber put his together on X. Great time of year to support the beat reporter community. They're fantastic at what they do, and they're roughing it out there every single day in that Maryland summer heat. Kyle's Ravens absences from practice. The following players: Rasheen Ali, the rookie running back who, based on what I saw Friday night, would be behind Owen Wright, if you ask me. Owen was just, I think, the better player, the more explosive player. Yeah, he was playing behind the better offensive line, but I saw more pop from Owen Wright, undrafted rookie who spent last season on Baltimore's practice squad. Tyler Linderbaum, no surprise here. They're going to be careful with him. He's dealing with a soft tissue issue, so expect more Ben Cleveland there. Rashad Bateman missed yet another practice. But as you heard at the top of the stream, John Harbaugh says that he should be back real soon. Chris Board, concussion protocol after leaving Friday night's game. Quincy Roche, what's Roche dealing with? Let me see if I have a note on that. I don't have an injury designation on Quincy Roche, so we'll have to get back to you on that. Nate Wiggins, obviously, day-to-day, as we discussed. Arthur Maulet, the knee, the arthroscopic surgery. Let his recovery timetable begin. Sanusi Kane, he's got that stinger from Friday night. Doesn't appear to be serious, which is great because the 7th round safety out of Purdue, I thought, was one of the bright spots on Friday night. Couple great tackles in open space. Effective special teamer. Plays like a Raven. Plattner was waived and Doss was waived. A couple of the, well, a long snapper and an offensive lineman, respectively. And then the Anthony Miller signing officially went through. The Ravens announced that, as they did with punter Jack Browning. So it's been a busy day of transactions for the team. They brought in a punter, and they brought in Anthony Miller, who we discussed last week, former 2nd-round pick by Chicago at the wide receiver position. He is now considered to be a long shot to try and make the back end of the wide receiver room on the 53-man roster. Don't think it's very likely given some of the other candidates, but throw Anthony Miller into that list. Aside from that, Trayvon Mullen did return to practice. So while Nate Wiggins goes down day to day, Trayvon Mullen comes up after being sidelined with a shoulder setback. So that's important. He could be one of your sleepers to try and make the 53. Adisa Isaac was taken off the non-football injury list at the end of last week, the rookie outside linebacker out of Penn State. And Gianna noted that he was taking live reps in 11-on-11 work earlier today with the second team defense. That's a big step from last week, and we need him to take some steps forward because the outside linebacker room has just as many questions, more questions certainly than the cornerback room, but it's a little bit thinner, I think, than John Harbaugh and company would like. And if 50 can take a big step, I'm not saying he needs to be a double-digit sack guy, but if he can help towards that sack by committee approach that they may need to take this year in that pass rush room, I think that'll be a win for the Ravens. In terms of actual observations from practice itself, Kyle had this to say. Lamar's first deep ball of practice was to a wide open Nelson Aguilar, who dropped it. Lamar then ripped his helmet off, meaning his own, and tossed it to the ground in frustration. Aguilar dropped a second deep ball later in practice, and Jackson was expressing frustration again. Something we didn't see from Nelly a whole lot of last year. He was fairly reliable and productive as a wide receiver 4 or 5. And yet, remember the knock on him coming in to that free agency signing a year ago? It was the drops. It was the unreliability. So hopefully that's just an outlier in what has otherwise been a quiet, meaning productive camp for the veteran Nelly. But that is something that took place earlier today. And I think you're continuing to see the evolution of Lamar Jackson as the leader or the fiery competitor in terms of the way that not only he's showing his emotions more, but also willing to maybe get into guys a little bit more in terms of the verbal feedback and adding to that competitive fire and juices of a training camp. Kyle also noted that today's practice, in his estimation, was one of Lamar's best with the deep ball, despite those disconnects with Nelly. He repeatedly, Lamar did, connected with Isaiah Likely. He also hit Zay in stride for a long connection. Jameson also noted that Lamar connected deep twice with Mark Andrews for touchdowns. And again, hit Zay Flowers in stride down the sideline for another score. So just because the Nelly connection wasn't there, you better believe these other ones certainly are. But those were a couple observations from today's practice. I think the moral of the story is that this time of year is a slippery slope when it comes to keeping guys safe, keeping guys in good shape going into the year. And this, if you're just tuning in, is what the Ravens dodged. A major injury, potentially, uh, could have been a major injury for Kyle Hamilton's left leg. He went down with what appeared to be a left leg injury. He was down for a bit before limping off, walked back to the locker room with a limp, under his own power, though. John Harbaugh met with the media not long after, said that he looked stable. Initial tests look good. First indications are that he's fine, but they'll do some more tests tonight and tomorrow to make sure of those two things. So that is that. It's a slippery slope kind of time. Colin, you better believe it. 2 shows on a Sunday. It's been that kind of day. But I got more scraping to do. I got one more side of the house, and it's a big boy. Like, it's probably 30 or 40 feet tall. Very wide. A lot of scraping. My pops is out here helping out. My mom's working on the shutters. Youngest brother, John, went and got his sandwiches. That was his contribution for the day. Love you, John. Thank you. Hopefully we can get him up on a ladder before the end of the day. He might be a little hungover, though. Highly concerning. But no. Wanted to pop on here and at least give you some opening thoughts to what could have been a scare, and the Ravens have been no stranger to scares in recent days. First, Nate Wiggins escapes from a serious shoulder injury, and now it looks, at least first signs, pointing in a positive direction for Kyle Hamilton. Tank Bromansky wants to know, are other teams getting injured like this during the preseason? Haven't really been paying attention. Has anybody else? Nothing can be worse, by the way. Going back to what Sean said earlier on in the stream, I'm not sure anything could be worse than the 2021 summer. And I know some of you got to be running hot at Sean for even bringing that up. Blitzbacker says that Malik Neighbors got hurt today. Number one grandpa checking in. They better rest him up now. We cannot afford to lose Kyle. They really can't. He's so incredibly valuable. Rainmaker, why is an all-pro player out there? Well, look, you truly can't, to use that classic phrase, you can't bubble wrap these guys. You can't. You got to let them play the game. He's a third-year player. He's not going to be getting vet days this time of year. Kyle's a leader. He wants to be out there. He's quickly become a leader for this team. So it's a slippery slope even when I had the thought that crossed my mind on Friday night, like, oh, why was Nate out there? Well, he's a rookie. You want him to get those valuable reps. It's hard to simulate full game speed when you only have a few preseason games, and knowing that the second and third, you don't typically play as many starters as you maybe do out of the gate in the first. All that has to be kept in mind. Inside the squared circle with King Judah weighing in on the cornerback room. Marlon and Brandon Stevens are going to lock down this season. I think so. But I want Marlon to be inside where he's best and then give Stevens and Wiggins an opportunity to create their own islands on the outside. That's what I want to see. So hopefully Nate can go week 1. And all indications based on today's reports and yesterday's reports is that he's in good shape to do so. JB weighing in, a lot of the Danny F criticism seems really off base. He's had some bad plays, but all players do. Overall, his pass pro was solid, and he displaced defenders in the run game, sticking up for Daniel Fa'alele. I gotta check in with Cole Jackson. I know he's been crunching the film. I was actually watching his breakdown earlier today of Andrew Voorhees, who looks to be in the driver's seat in terms of where things are headed for him as the starting left guard. Seems like that's sort of a shoo-in at this point based on not only his play, but for also what they're saying about him and around him. Remember, Marquise Hollywood Brown did go down. We're probably not going to see him, I would think, based on yesterday's injury. If you missed it, he had to be hospitalized due to a sternoclavicular joint dislocation. It's the same injury that Tyreek Hill suffered in Jacksonville back in 2019, and that caused him to miss a chunk of games that year. I think it was 4, to be exact. So, it's not just in Baltimore. It's a scary time of year for all 32 NFL teams. But I know a lot of you have PTSD from a few years ago, 3 years ago, right around now. I will never forget the non-contact knee injuries on back-to-back plays in which the Ravens lost Marcus Peters and then Gus Edwards. Not to mention, J.K. Dobbins was right around that time. I can't remember if that was 2020 or 2021. I think it was preseason 2021, right? Because he was a rookie and broke all those Ravens rookie records in 2020. And I want to say the Washington Redskins at the time, preseason game in the summer of 2021, was when he went down with his ACL injury at FedEx. If memory serves, that was that. So there's a 30-minute piece of content for you. Justin Holt just got his signal back, wants to know what's going on with Kyle. And so we'll close with one more good reminder on Kyle, who looks to have walked away unscathed from what could have been a serious left leg injury. John Harbaugh says that first tests, all indications look good. Hopefully that continues to be the case because he is Baltimore's unicorn. They've got 2 unicorns, one at the quarterback position, one at the do-it-all safety position, and that is number 14, Kyle Hamilton. Thank you guys for dropping by. Thank you to Preston Automotive Group for sponsoring this episode. If you guys are in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle, you can go to PrestonMotor.com. They got a great stacked inventory of options for you. Go check it out. Tank Bromansky wants me to drink Natty Boh while painting my mother's house. It's the American way. This stomach cannot have beer. I've not had a beer in over 5 years. So how about a cocktail instead? How about an old fashioned? I could use an old fashioned after all the ladder work that I did today. So anyway, appreciate you guys as always. Would love for you to join the Bobby Baltimore Discord server if you haven't already done so. That's what you see on the bottom line right now, rotating back and forth. I did have an espresso martini last night, Daniel. You're right. But that old fashioned hits different. Gives you a jolt. Just a jolt. Let's see what's going on in the Discord, though, before we jump. Because I just hit 500 members thanks to you guys yesterday. And it's been a fun group. Everybody's talking about the Kyle Hamilton bullet dodged right now. Relatively slow day in the football chat, but you better believe baseball is running. And after today's loss, in which Craig Kimbrell struggles yet again, I weighed in with this. I don't know how anybody in that front office can feel good about the idea of him being on your postseason roster. It cannot happen. He's an all-time great. He's a future Hall of Famer. But you just cannot feel good about him going into the postseason. You just can't. Join the Discord group, guys. It is free, and it is a 24/7 hub for conversations surrounding Baltimore sports And that link to join, which is free, was just dropped in the live chat below. Let's get to 600 here soon. I appreciate you guys for dropping by as always. Have an awesome rest of your weekend. If you don't hear from me between now and tomorrow's live stream, then it's all systems go. It's business as usual. But in terms of tomorrow's schedule, 12 noon Eastern, Inside the Vault. Sarah will be back soon, but she's still in Thailand, so I think I actually locked down Evan Washburn. I think Evan Washburn's joining us. Yep, here he just texted me. Evan Washburn, CBS broadcaster, who's also the sideline reporter for Ravens preseason games, will be tomorrow's featured guest. He's covered many Super Bowls. I love Evan. He's a Baltimore guy. And we're going to get his observations from a pretty dang good view that he had on Friday night inside the bank. That'll be up tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, Inside the Vault. Appreciate you guys for dropping by. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so you can be notified in terms of when we're dropping our live content. All right? Have an awesome weekend. Later.